sure a lot of people are quite stressed what is happening to the global market, what is happening to India particularly. So I thought, let me address the larger picture first, because sometimes what happens, though everybody has long term, but the short term turbulence which comes actually shakes your confidence, and which is the case in today's context. Okay, the all buy on dip thesis has now moved to sell on rallies, and a lot of people are disturbed. Okay, and it's the same thing what I heard a few minutes back. So that's the reason we chose this topic of perception analytics. So I'll talk about a longer term perspective also, then I'll come to the near term perspective also and the medium term perspective. So you'll get a fairly good perspective what we are looking at. So when we always talk about how India perception has changed, okay? Before we get into it, let me talk about the importance of perception analytics. Now we all have heard, I think I've explained you earlier, today I'm getting to more details about this thesis. We all knew about earnings. People talk about GDP forecast, people talk about earnings forecast. Again, assumption based. Based on certain assumptions, you see next 3 years, next 5 years, next 10 years, next decade numbers. On certain assumption, yes, you can work on numbers. But it's all about earnings related, it's all about GDP related. Nobody talks about what is the valuation analytics should be. What is the fair valuation, okay, in terms of multiple? And that is something we try to address through perception analytics. We do for sectors, stocks, as well as country. My entire focus right now is more talking about from a India perspective, okay? Now, if you really look at from a very powerful tool from a long-term perspective, even your DCF model, okay, which really helps you to finding a fair value from a longer-term perspective, this perception can influence, okay? Now, if you go back in the history, why I'm talking about that something has changed for India, okay? How from 1960 onwards or 47 onwards, how US relevance started coming to picture, and 1960 onwards, we have seen the relevance of US become very important, and so is the case with what happened in the European countries or the British pound in the past, and how we look at going forward. What happened in 91, 92 from China, and since then, lot of things got changed. I think we are in the cusp of that inflection point. Something has already changed in 2017. From 2017, how this cycle is changing, this is the entire thesis we are going to talk about today. Okay. Now, before we get into it, because a lot of people have concerned about it, I will address in the few slides also. India is a decadal story, okay? This thesis, why I'm highlighting, last 2 years we are hearing India is expensive, very expensive. A lot of people you leave last few months of correction, or particularly January month or October onwards or September and onwards, whatever we have seen. But what I'm trying to highlight when we talk about a VLRT framework, we always talk about 1/3 is about valuation analytics. And a lot of people have discomfort because if you get into the historical number, what is the history, what happened in 2000, 2008 or 2018, 3 important tops I'm talking about in the market. And people tend to get into what is the valuation multiple, or let's say in simple terms, what was the P multiple, what was the forward P multiple at that point in time. And then you try to conclude that, oh, that is the cycle which peaked out and we are in something similar. 2 years back, we are in similar situation. Market never corrected. What we have to understand, it means when you start looking into one dimension aspect, pure valuation analytics, you don't get all answers. And India is expensive. India will remain expensive. And our call is not from a short-term perspective, maybe a decadal call, maybe 3 decades perspective, India will remain expensive till our demographic cycle peaks out in 2047. So it's a 3-decadal opportunity. Now how you play, and this is what we are trying to conclude through perception analytics. I'm going to address some of these things in next few slides. It's very important to understand because a lot of people will miss out this phenomenal wealth creating opportunity in short-term perspective or medium-term perspective. Yes, last 4-5 years has been extraordinary, and that is the biggest risk which I always talk about, that expectation risk, because expectation levels have moved up significantly, and when you see 6-8 months, 6-8% fall in the market or 25-30% fall in select large cap names also, the confidence is a bit shaken. But from a larger perspective, India is a very big secular story. From a longer term perspective, if you really look at, despite all the FIs are selling, that's a cycle also we can discuss and briefly talk about. Despite all the FIs selling, we believe India is a long-term secular story, both from FDI and FPI perspective. This is what we're going to address. Okay. So I will cover the perception analytics data through our next book, which is yet to be launched. So what we have written about India and what we can talk about, and this is something which we'll talk about. This is the entire thesis is about how 2017 till 2047, the India re-emergence happens, the great transition place which happened from the global perspective. And this is the whole thesis, how India re-emerges. That's the way it is showcased in the center. Now, let's understand, when we talk about US as a market, okay, from 1960, when we talk about, or 1947, if we'll talk about 100-year cycle nearly, because dollar become a reserve currency, if I'm not wrong, in 44 onwards. Since then, what changed in the global market? US brought a phenomenal concept of leverage economy. It's when European was leading, it's all about real economy, real asset, what they created. When American economy got built, or the relevance of America came into picture, leverage economy as a concept got built. And that is the driving force in today's market. And this is what we are trying to showcase, what is changing globally. Now, today, if you look at, real economy doesn't drive the market. It's a leverage economy drives the economy. And today, leverage economy is 12 times, 14 times bigger than the real economy. And that is the way, in very simple terms, and if you look at in your own equity market, we look at the derivative data, what is the open interest, what is the leverage position, and then you see, try to understand what is the impact is there on the equity market. In very simple terms, I'm trying to explain, but from a larger perspective, leverage economy drives the real economy. And this was the thesis of US, how the relevance of US came into picture, and this is what we are trying to showcase. Now, what we expect is changing and how India comes as a picture into that. Now, this whole thesis, we're talking about leverage economy thing. Now, in this book, we have tried to showcase that now we are moving towards real economy, okay? When we're talking about real economy, which means leverage as a concept will decline, okay? And if you really look at how economy has grown up, look at even India, banks are struggling. All the larger companies don't need to borrow that much. Equity as asset class is booming globally, okay? And the need of the leverage itself is declining is one aspect, but this whole thesis is going to move towards a real economy, and that's the reason we are extremely bullish on commodities in long term. And one of the reasons we believe we are extremely bearish on the banking sector, because banking is a byproduct of leverage economy. How the relevance is declining, and that's the reason the P multiple globally is deteriorating, and it will deteriorate further. How the neo-banking or digital banking picture will come into picture. So this is the whole thesis about virtual currency will play out. I'm not reading one by one, I'm just trying to showcase how India is equipped. And India will be one of the important players who will be taking initiative. And I not talk about only India, it is more of a Asia-centric emerging market will play a very important role globally, and India will be a leader in that. Now, this is the way how we look at Bharat re-emerges. Now, let's go back for 2 minutes and understand the importance of currency, okay? When we talk about currency relevance, currency showcases the strength of a country, okay? Today, US is why it's a reserve currency status. That's the reason people respect US, because they dominate. They can print as much as they can, and there's no impact on their economy, where any other country has an issue, because it's a relative game. We are trying to showcase how, go back in the history, from 14th century, if you see, we can go back even also, but whatever clear data is visible, a lot of people don't know even that Portuguese was the reserve currency status long back, and they dominated for 80 years, then followed by Spain, Netherlands, then that France, the franc of Britain. GBP is the only thing which a lot of people know that was the reserve currency, and how you see it has changed. Now, very interesting data is there. If I go by pure analytics, at least it lasts for 80 years. Any reserve currency, it lasted for 80 years. And we have just completed 80 years of USD also as a dollar relevance, okay? Now, if I go into pure mathematical numbers, it's a typically somewhere close to 99 years of cycle. Between 90 plus cycle is always plus minus 10 years, because you can't time it so perfectly. So we are coming, when we're talking about that by 2047, US will not be a reserve currency status, which means it's not going to happen tomorrow morning, okay, and despite dollar has strength. But that's the way our data points are indicating. That is the strength of predictive analytics, what we are trying to build. How the relevance is going to change. And this is something very important for us to understand why we are talking about. Now, what we're talking about, now you say, a lot of people have questions. If dollar goes away, then which currency will emerge? It's a complex subject. We believe China one should not ignore, but China cannot become a reserve currency because of purely on trust factor. But all the efforts which they are taking, the way the yields are coming down, it means they are also trying, if not the reserve currency status, they can become a carry trade of the world. That is something which they are working on it. So the way I look at, lot of asset classes will change. And when the advent of CBDC coming into picture, the central bank digital currency, that's the way your commercial bank relevance will deteriorate in big time. That intermediary will go away. You will start away dealing with the main central bank. And globally, the trades will be backed by gold. That's a larger thesis if I have to explain this matter. So what is very important from a longer term perspective? Gold. Okay? So in this part of India is where a lot of saving is there in the form of gold. So we are extraordinarily bullish from a precious metal from longer term perspective, not for 2025 alone. It can see some amount of choppiness, which I will talk about. What is very important, this is a phenomena will play. So if you talk about how by 2047 or 2050, I think gold will be in a very unique situation. Now let's talk about in a complex multipolar world, okay? Let's not ignore India or Russia or China. So when this thesis of BRICS currency coming into picture, how DXY is there. Similarly, a BRICS currency can involve where the weightage of the Chinese currency and RMB can be on higher side. That's a way it will evolve gradually, so acceptance will come into picture. So if you really look at from a digital currency perspective, we believe India will be in a very leading situation. They will be headquarter of technology in that sense, the way UPI has been successful. Many countries are taking over technology. Now, I will briefly talk about, so this is how famous quote is, gold is money, everything else is credit. This is the quote given by JP Morgan thing. Now, what is I'm trying to showcase how the glimpses of CBDC will play out from a longer term perspective. It's a complex subject, difficult to explain everything in a short film. I just want to touch base how we are looking at these market from a longer term perspective. I have already talked about. This is one of the reasons why we don't own banking in our portfolio, because a lot of questions asked. If you really ask me, if this get implemented and our banks don't change, bank weightage, which is 40% closer to the BFSI space, may not be even 10%, but I'm sure bank will change. It will change in long-term perspective. So that's a thesis we work from a longer-term perspective. It's not a thesis that we don't like it, okay? Or it's a consensus trade. When we look at deterioration in data points or in terms of multiple, it's a data-driven. Now, I just want to spend a minute on money flow analytics also. Since we talk about perception, if relevance of US will decline, okay? And despite dollar index, it is close to high right now, and it has potential to will spike from a near-term perspective or medium-term perspective. That's the part we cover in risk. But how money flow analytics works on it is all about how you linkage between the liquidity and the risk appetite globally. And if 10% money shift from US, which will happen, if not today, down the line, 3 years, 4 years sort of thing, in next 5 years, you will see a phenomena playing out where decoupling process will start. Money will shift towards Asian emerging market in general. And if 10-12% money shift from US, there'll be tsunami out here. That's the way how when we talk about, a lot of people have heard my view on the USD INR, that long term, after 5 years perspective, it can appreciate, and appreciate maybe 30%. But from a very near-term perspective, in the previous book we have talked about, it can go up to 88.5 or closer to, let's say, 90 levels. Okay, let's talk about from a dynamic style of money management. A lot of people have been quite concerned last 6 months of a performance, okay, or underperformance. We always talk about in risk-on environment, we take aggressive bets based because of risk-on environment and generate extraordinary alpha, which help you in a risk-off environment. In risk-off environment is all about safety first, liquidity, and then the returns come into picture, which is the case. We were very early to take that call in the month of July. I don't think any economist or strategists have talked about India downgrade. In July 2024, when we talked about something has changed, and this is something, and it's playing out quite well, but we are relatively early. So even you look at from a 5 year perspective, what we have built, okay, despite how dynamic style of money management has delivered, these are the numbers. This is updated till last week. So you can get a fairly good perspective from a longer term perspective, how dynamic style of money management, irrespective of short term and medium term cycles, has really generated huge alpha as compared to benchmark. And that is, we always talk about, it's not about absolute return, it's not about relative returns. What we have to understand and learn, what is my risk-adjusted returns? That is something remain a very theoretical academic exercise. Everybody talks about absolute outperformance or relative outperformance to peers or the benchmark. So let's talk about 2 minutes. This is even how the performance has been on the various categories. Some of the, in 2023, we launched many thematic funds, how they have done some inception. It'll give you a fairly good perspective. Now, I want to talk about 2 minutes because perception analytics is also a part of a predictive analytics thesis, a larger campaign of the research which we do, how we connect the dot and try to see for the future, mathematically how we can quantify. Now, this is the slide. In July presentation, we have talked about that something in the June presentation, we talked about that something is brewing, a table rate risk. And we saw in July the currency risk play out. Okay, if you recollect USD JPY, the appreciation in the JPY happened and there was a sharp fall in the global equity. India also fell, but because India domestic equity liquidity was very good, it came back. So this is a thesis which we want to talk about, just trying to give you perspective how in September we talked about a difficult phase sort of thing. So let's look at, since the entire thesis of quant is all about risk management. We always say we are in the business of risk management, money, and the returns are byproduct. Now let me explain you through a graphical picture. A lot of people have seen this graph, okay? So if you look at how the quant risk appetite in July started collapsing, and now we look at the Nifty drifting down, okay? It's give you a fairly good perspective. Now I just want to come here for a fraction of a minute. What is important to give you a sense, okay? This is a slide which was written in 2012, okay? And this is all about geopolitical volatility. What we are trying to showcase, before Trump took the oath, in the November month presentation I talked about after Trump election, the geopolitical volatility will start declining. And that is something what you have seen, a recent agreement, and we even expect Russia will settle down in next few months, even a trade war which is going on, maybe by first half of 2025 settle down. This is an important slide to understand, something which was written 13 years back, okay? When we talked about how geopolitical volatility. Now you look at, see the geopolitical volatility, the momentum is declining, though it's more red for various other reasons. But look at the decline which has beginning of 2025, this decay has started. So far the geopolitical volatility was playing out beautifully. Now this is the first time we are talking about this decay. Now it has a lot of ramification. When we talk about ramification, the biggest uncertainty globally is all about geopolitical or unknown risk, which we say. Nobody can talk about the probability of geopolitical related unknown risks will cool down. Okay, that cycle will subside in a big way. And this is something important thesis for understand, keep at the back of the mind, the risk which we have seen. Since we are student of largely cycle analysts, we analyze 100 years and thousands years of data, and then try to see, give you perspective, how beautifully it can be played. Something was written 13 years back, how all this, if you look at N19, we showcase how the geopolitical volatility will play, and these all the phenomena will play out, a biological war, economic war, everything played out. Even bubble busted in 2020. India peaked out in January 20. MSCI AMM peaked out in 17-18. So something mathematically can be countered so well, okay? And hence it gives you a perspective about confidence, about strength in looking into data. Now, let's look at, from today's context perspective, how to navigate 2025. We have covered in our recent monthly call, which we do on the distributor, something which we have talked about. I just want to skip some of the things. So let's talk about cycle phenomena, which we talked about. What we are saying, this year, despite there will be multiple challenges, what we are expecting, not on the geopolitical, overall volatility will rise, okay? And you will see large moves will unfold, okay, within a short span of time on multiple asset classes. So, which means the choppiness in 2025 will be significantly high, and it will not last long. So suddenly you see 2 weeks of spike, 3 weeks of spike, and then things settling down. This sort of choppiness, what our analytic thesis are talking about, and we're talking about, a lot of people say the interest rate will come down. So if I have to worry about short-term phenomena, no. But global interest rate, particular developed market interest rate cycle, inflation as well as interest rates is elevated and will remain elevated for longer period of time, maybe by end of this decade. So this is some of the important conclusion if I have to draw. And let's talk about 2 minutes from the risk perspective, known risk, unknown risk perspective. Since Trump is taking an oath from January 20th to March 20th, I always talked about being a largely macro house. We like to be very watchful and see how it plays out. So the polity risk or the policy risk in next 2 months or 3 months time frame will be the highest. If I have to say, if I have to really conclude, maybe first half will be challenging as compared to second half. So a lot of people have whether 2025 will be constructive also or not, whether we will give a negative return. I believe it will be positive return by end of December 2025. Within that first half, first quarter will be more challenging. This is more challenging from global market perspective because I'm more concerned about US market, which I'll come in few minutes, rather than India. So if you really look at what is the data, so let's say DXY is no more unknown risk now. This what we have highlighted right from August, September, we are highlighting when dollar index was closer to 100 mark. This is the risk which we have, and it has played out. 110.10, which has peaked out from a trading perspective, so it can correct. But I'm not ruling out a risk of even 118, 121 happening over a period of next 12 months or 15 months. That's the reason whenever it will happen, it will be very sharp. Now, we are not going to say that is not possible. Technically, it has peaked out. We are not student of any technical analysis. It's very difficult to gauge that thing. But whatever macro data we can read, this is the risk which you have keep in mind. And that's a risk. So this year is all about yields and currencies. The currency volatility and yield volatility is something which you have to watch, not about the equity markets. So this is a phenomena, back of the mind you have to keep. Something similarly, if I talk about a polity risk which happened, and the most unknown risk will come from China, what happened in September, how the stimulus played out, and they will also be watchful, whatever steps China, Japan, US will take, based on that basis, they will take. So as of now, it's an unknown risk for me, and that's the reason when July we talked about risk-off phase, mild risk-off, and September, October, it was a proper risk-off. Now we're talking about a mild risk on India phase, mild, because certain sectors, certain stocks are closer to bottom, and maybe by in the next slide, I think I talked about how we look at these data points. So if I have to really worry, the situation which we were in July 2024 for India, something similar is there for US. The complacency is highest, extraordinary money flow is moving towards US, and the hype is there. The way I read the market, the vulnerability is highest in the US market, and one of the reasons our portfolio technology size on lower side, because we think within US, technology stocks are more vulnerable, not from a long-term perspective is still very constructive. But if I have to take 1 quarter view, we see challenges out there. And this is one of the reasons we still remain cautious on the US front. Despite economy has done very well on absolute basis, relatively they are doing well, and they will still do well. But still, what we have to look at the complacency aspect. So we have to look at from a, largely if I have to concentrate on in India, I've said that prolonged risk phase, which is started in July, may get peak out by March 2025. So a lot of people have this concern in mind about happened to mid-cap, what happened, as I explained you. So whenever risk appetite peaks out, obviously the large and mid and small cycle, particularly small cycle, small peaked out, but we are absolutely not negative on small cap, okay? If you leave the, let's say 6 months, 1 quarter or 1 year phenomena, because what is happening in last 4 years, it's all about large cap which has underperformed, mega large has even underperformed. So both small and mid has outperformed Nifty by more than 20, 30%. And can this reverse happen? I think reverse has already happened. So Nifty will outperform, which was our original thesis when we talked about in July, the risk-off cycle is going to play out. So what we have to look at is that this year is all about, if somebody is looking for 25, definitely large and mega large will outperform mid and small. But this is only on relative basis. When we talk about absolute basis, we are very convinced when you're talking about a decadal story for India, a few decades story for India. Obviously, mid and small has to do very well, and small particularly. So it's all about, if you have that 5 years, 10-year risk horizon, then small will outperform. We remain very constructive on a small cap. Only from 1 quarter or 1 year perspective, we are cautious. And we were very early to take that cautious call, because when you talk about risk off, what you do, move towards from mid and small to large or mega large, move from illiquid to liquid, move from low beta, high beta to low beta, which we did. With the only thing, we were more conservative. We were very early to do that. And it has played out well for us. In between, we have underperformed because of mid and small did very well. Now, if I have to look at largely two important risks I always have been highlighting for last many months, is about the expectation risk. Our own expectation remains elevated. As a problem with the markets right now, if I have seen this phenomenon in last many months. Investors are coming and advising distributors to put money, particularly in the thematic fund, is a classic example how thematic cycle, because high risk peaked out last year. They were advising distributor to put money. Distributor were advising us when we were sitting on large cash, why don't you deploy money market? We are supporting you. We are very bullish. So a cycle is a behavior thesis, how it played out. Now, that expectation has to be toned down from a year's perspective. We are very clear. We are in bull run, decisive bull run, but we are in difficult phase of bull run. I always highlight, in last many months, I've been talking, easy phase of bull run is over. And second thing is, obviously, the impact cost has gone up because of lot many regulatory changes. And every time any rule regulation gets changed, market takes its own time to absorb. We have seen multiple times it's getting absorbed. But right now, the impact cost is really high. And that's the reason the fluctuation in the, even in the large cap stocks is very meaningful. Now, if I have to look at our own strategy, what we are trying to showcase is very clearly we are shifting from illiquid to liquid. Even still, we have that focus. Within the small and mid also, we want to have a liquid portfolio. Okay? The entire thesis revolves around on the safety. We always say in risk on generate extraordinary alpha and risk off, just try to play safe. If I have to really give you example, okay, in terms of our thinking, one of the channels I talked about, how in 2020, when we spotted that the most admired territory stocks in those time will underperform, and 2020 onwards is all about hated zone stock, which played out quite well. Now reverse is happening. Erstwhile admired territory stocks now have come down to the neglected zone, if not hated zone, and those are the names where we have increased our exposure because we believe the margin of safety is much higher. And it's all about margin of safety. Let's say by March, the risk of cycle peaks out. Shifting from large to small or mid is very easy. It's a one-week job. Reverse takes time. And today, if you look at, sit down and analyze any, on an unbiased manner, any portfolio, wherever you have seen the skewness towards concentrated holding, mid or small, where that's the area the portfolio is issues. And that's one of the reasons we were very early to take that calls. Our portfolios are fairly liquid. We are more skewed towards safety perspective. And if I have to really say, and not to just boost your confidence, mid and small, long term, absolutely no problem. Okay? If you have that 5 years investment, that's the reason last year, if you recollect, we sent a mail also saying that please reassess your risk appetite. Please reassess your investment horizon. We advise a lot of people move from mid and small to flexi. And that is something we still advise a lot of people now also. It's a continuous process. You have to understand your client's risk appetite, because I say one of the speaker talked about. So at the peak of the cycle, risk appetite is highest for everybody. Their investment horizon is always long term at that time, but the risk tolerance levels is not there, and which you can gauge better. So as a money manager, this is what we are advised there. We remain very constructive for India. It's a phase which we are going through. In this phase, if you get capitulated to the bottom of the cycle, then God will also not help you. So just remain patient about mid and small from a longer term perspective. Otherwise, in current context, all the schemes where money manager has highest flexibility to manage. So let's say for our perspective, Quant Flexi Cap called multi-asset, or even our, let's say thematic fund like Quant Business Cycle, which is focused Flexi Cap. Wherever flexibility is highest for a money manager, those are the products which you look at for it. I think on time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.